All right, so I want to talk about the 2022 reboot of Queer as Folk, which is based off the same show from the early 2000s, which was, such a cult following. And this is not exactly a continuation, but this is kind of a reimagining of that same idea. It might take place in the same world, but we're never actually given that kind of concept, at least not to my knowledge. I didn't really watch the original Queer as Folk when it was airing, or just like later in life. I've seen like a couple episodes or snippets here and there, so I don't know it too well. So I went into watching this version with no expectation. I just wanted to see like what it was going to offer in terms of entertainment value. And that's what I'm going to be talking about today. I have to tell you, just from my own personal opinion, I was not really a fan of this version, and I was informed that it was not going to be picked up for a second season, and I think there is a reason why. I feel as if the show had a lot of, ideas it wanted to share. It just didn't know what to do with those ideas. Now, that isn't to say that the acting was bad. I thought the acting was fine, just kind of all throughout, but the characters, in terms of their story arcs and the character development, I thought was very muddled, very messy. I don't think the creators or the writers knew exactly what they wanted to do with them, or at least not fully. I felt like in this very limited 8-episode, arc, it just got very confusing. A lot of ideas were being thrown out all at once. It was kind of like when you throw things into the kitchen sink and it's all there. It's like, okay, what do I do now? Or when you're handed a plate at a buffet, or you pile all these things on and you're like, okay, where do I start? The show had a lot of that, so to speak. And I felt like a lot of the characters just were doing things that were very random, or things that didn't make sense, or things I didn't agree with. Now, mind you, the series completely starts off with a tragedy, and the characters kind of, use each other as ways to keep each other moving forward after something horrific as the event that took place. Now, clearly, the show was very inspired by the true story that happened at Pulse nightclub. This begins with a shooting at a gay club during one night, and everything, all just like in the community, falls apart, and they're trying to rebuild from there. Meanwhile, while that's happening, we're also getting kind of just an idea and a look at all these different characters from different walks of life, but how they're all kind of connected some way. I just didn't feel like the connection was all that meaningful. I actually didn't see the chemistry between a lot of the romantic partners in this show. Some characters I was excited to see kind of explore each other romantically, and then others I didn't understand at all. Now, I'm going to get into a little bit of spoiler territory just for a moment, so if you've seen this reboot, I would like to know your thoughts on this, so this is your warning. The one thing that I really was a little bit perturbed by was at the very end of the series, when Brody and Ruthie were written in to be together again. Now, there is a moment in the series where we kind of see a flashback of them in high school and how that's kind of how they started. They were romantically involved, they were friends, and then they kind of went their own way after Ruthie transitioned, but they still stayed very close together as friends, and they know everything about each other. They love each other very much, but the connection, the chemistry of them as a couple, I didn't buy, I didn't see, and I didn't understand why the show went in that direction to kind of conclude it there. It just wasn't exactly the payoff I was looking for, and I didn't understand why that was happening. Now, that could just be me, but I just didn't agree with that choice. And that goes to, say about a lot of the characters in the show and certain decisions that happen or things that are going on. I just didn't quite understand or agree with why they were happening. I wanted to really like this show. I really did, because I think a lot of the characters, there is something there. It's just like we're given just a smidgen of something to like, and then it kind of just falls flat. I feel like by the end of this, you're just kind of left with no resolution, no satisfaction. It's very anticlimactic, and I didn't really feel like there was a need to continue this particular story or this version of Queer as Folk, personally speaking. So, again, can't really compare it to the original, but with this version alone, I just wasn't that big of a fan, and I can see why it's not getting picked up for another season. There are moments that are noteworthy, but overall, just not all that great, personally speaking. But if you've seen the show, I would like to know your thoughts. Please drop a comment down below and we can talk about it. Otherwise, it's going to be a pass for me overall.